Before we begin, I want you to do something important. If you believe that honesty can change a life, if you believe that love is more than just excitement, if you enjoy real stories about difficult choices and emotional growth, then take a second right now to subscribe to this channel. Because the story you're about to hear isn't about drama. It isn't about betrayal. And it definitely isn't about playing with people's hearts. It's about courage. It's about emotional clarity. And it's about one man who risked losing everything, just to finally tell the truth. So subscribe, stay with me until the end, and let's begin. Daniel Harper stared at his phone the way someone might stare at a ticking device they weren't sure would explode. The message on the screen was simple, polite, carefully written, but it carried weight, heavy enough to change the direction of his life. Outside his apartment in Seattle, rain slid down the tall windows in slow, uneven lines. Streetlights blurred into golden smears across the wet glass. The city moved as usual, cars passing, distant sirens humming, life unfolding without hesitation. But inside that apartment, everything felt paused. Daniel exhaled slowly and ran a hand over his face. At 38 years old, he had become a man who avoided dramatic moments. He managed projects at a tech company, paid his bills early, kept his calendar organized, and maintained friendships that felt safe and uncomplicated. After his divorce, safety had become his philosophy. His marriage to Laura had not ended in shouting or public scandal. It ended quietly, carefully, respectfully, but also painfully. There is something uniquely heavy about a quiet ending. There are no villains to blame, no dramatic events to point to, just two people who slowly realize that something essential has faded. And when it was over, Daniel carried a private belief. I failed at something permanent. Since then he had lived alone, cooked simple dinners, watched late-night television, went to work, came home, repeated. He convinced himself he preferred peace over risk. But loneliness has a subtle voice. It creeps into long evenings. It echoes in silent kitchens. It lingers when no one is waiting for you to come home. And then months ago, everything began shifting. Emily, the past that knew him first. Emily Carter had once known Daniel before he became careful. They met in college in Boston, years ago. Back then, Daniel was ambitious but uncertain. He had dreams but lacked confidence. Emily believed in him before he fully believed in himself. She laughed easily, asked deep questions, remembered small details about people. They separated kindly after graduation. Career paths pulled them toward different cities. They promised to stay in touch. They didn't. Life has a way of stretching distance until it becomes silence. Then one afternoon, Daniel received a message from her. She had ended a long engagement in Toronto. She was back in the United States. She wondered if he'd like to meet for coffee. He hesitated for only a second before saying yes. When they met, the conversation flowed naturally. The awkwardness dissolved quickly. She still understood him in a way few people did. With Emily he felt remembered. She asked about his divorce without judgment. She listened fully. She didn't rush him to conclusions. And being with her felt like stepping into a familiar room you once loved, but forgot existed. She represented his past, but not in a nostalgic way. She represented who he used to be before fear shaped him. Sophie, the future that challenged him. Around the same time Emily reappeared, someone new entered his daily life. Sophie Reynolds joined his company. Confident, quick-witted, sharp in meetings. She challenged ideas openly, even his. She teased him for being too serious. She insisted he stop eating lunch alone at his desk and join the team. At first, he found her overwhelming. But then he noticed something. She wasn't reckless. She was fearless. She spoke about ambition the way other people spoke about comfort. She traveled alone, tried new experiences without overthinking them. She once told him, "Life doesn't reward people who wait for guarantees." With Sophie, Daniel felt awake. She represented possibility, who he could become if he stopped protecting himself from emotional uncertainty. Rachel, the present that felt like home. And then there was Rachel Bennett, the neighbor downstairs. Their friendship began accidentally. One rainy evening, Daniel helped her carry groceries up the stairs. She was balancing work, single motherhood, and exhaustion, but carried herself with quiet strength. Her son's laughter sometimes drifted up through the floorboards. She had kind eyes, a steady voice, and a way of speaking that made you feel heard without being interrogated. Small conversations became shared tea on the building steps. Late-night talks about responsibilities and rebuilding life after heartbreak. With Rachel, Daniel didn't feel like he had to perform. He didn't feel like he needed to be impressive, or exciting, or reinvented. He felt accepted. And that feeling was new. Emotional entanglement. He never planned to care about 3 women at once. Feelings don't always ask permission. They grow quietly. Emily made him reflective. Sophie made him energized. Rachel made him peaceful. Pretending those emotions didn't exist felt dishonest. But choosing impulsively felt unfair. So one evening, after weeks of internal debate, he did something bold. He sent each of them a message. He asked them to meet him together. He didn't fully explain why. Even thinking about it made his heart race. What kind of man asks 3 women who matter to him to sit at the same table? A reckless one? Or an honest one? He wasn't sure. The lakeside cafe. He chose a small cafe by the lake. Neutral ground. Quiet atmosphere. Open space. Somewhere honesty could breathe. He arrived early and adjusted chairs repeatedly. Checked his watch. Replayed possible reactions in his head. Emily arrived first. Curious smile. Gentle hug. Sophie walked in next. Raised eyebrow. This already feels dramatic, she joked. Rachel arrived last. Slightly breathless. Warm smile. For a moment, silence sat between them like an uninvited guest. Daniel cleared his throat. And he told the truth. He told them each had become important to him. That he didn't want hidden emotions to create future misunderstandings. That he respected them too much to navigate this privately or deceptively. His voice shook at first. Then steadied. Instead of anger, he saw something unexpected. Thoughtfulness. Emily listened deeply. Sophie analyzed but didn't mock. Rachel watched him gently, encouraging him to continue. He wasn't asking for decisions. He wasn't demanding answers. He was asking for transparency. And slowly, shockingly, the tension dissolved. They ordered coffee. Conversation shifted. Stories emerged. Emily spoke about rebuilding her life after her broken engagement. Sophie admitted she feared slowing down long enough to let someone truly know her. Rachel spoke about rediscovering herself after heartbreak while raising her son. Laughter replaced awkwardness. And something unexpected happened. The 3 women began connecting with each other. Not competing. Not comparing. Connecting. That night didn't explode his life. It opened it. The weeks that followed. What started as one unusual meeting became a rhythm. Sunday brunches. Waterfront walks. Spontaneous restaurant visits. Daniel noticed something rare. There was no rivalry. Only openness. Each woman brought something distinct. Emily brought emotional depth. Sophie brought vitality. Rachel brought steadiness. And Daniel began noticing something subtle. With Emily he felt understood. With Sophie he felt inspired. But with Rachel, he felt calm. After gatherings, Rachel often walked home with him. Their conversations slowed naturally. Silence felt comfortable. One evening on his balcony, she admitted she had been nervous about that first cafe meeting, but grateful. You created a space where no one felt compared, she said. He realized then how peaceful he felt sitting beside her. No performance. No uncertainty. Just presence. And that realization didn't hit like lightning. It settled like clarity. The second meeting. Eventually, Daniel understood something. Avoiding truth would hurt more than speaking it. So he invited them back to the lakeside cafe. The same table. The same water reflecting evening light. He thanked them for helping him heal parts of himself he thought were broken. And then he said it. Love wasn't about excitement alone. It wasn't about familiarity alone. It was about peace. He turned toward Rachel. When I'm with you, he said, I don't question who I am. I don't feel like I need to become someone else. I just feel home. Silence followed. Rachel's eyes filled with emotion. Emily smiled softly. Sophie leaned back, unsurprised. Rachel admitted she felt the same, but didn't want to assume. Relief flooded him. And something remarkable happened. There was no resentment. Because everything had been honest. Choosing peace. Daniel and Rachel didn't rush into grand declarations. They built something quietly. Cooking dinners. Helping her son with homework. Walking weekend markets. Emily remained a close friend. Sophie continued challenging him at work. And Daniel understood something deeper. That first message wasn't about choosing between women. It was about choosing truth over fear. One evening by the lake, Rachel resting her head against his shoulder, Daniel thought back to that rainy night in his apartment. He had believed thrill came from uncertainty. Now he knew. Real thrill comes from clarity. From knowing where you belong. From speaking honestly even when your voice shakes. His life didn't change because of one dramatic choice. It changed because of many small, honest moments. And for the first time since his divorce, he no longer felt like a man who failed. He felt like a man who learned, who risked, who grew, and who finally understood that love is not about who excites you the most. It's about who makes you breathe easier.